So cool, yeah. So everything cool with the dentist, just a checkup kind of thing, or was there?
No, a crown.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
I used to hate going to the dentist, but I finally found a dentist that I really like.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have a dentist that actually gives a shit about whether you're in pain or not.
Yes. Are you comfortable? I'd be more comfortable if you got some pot.
I've got this this tooth thing, and like every time, listen, I'm just here for pot.
Something about that drill is really aggravating my glaucoma.
This is Epic Battle Cry Skirmish 231. One tiny small incident.
Hello and welcome to Epic Battle Cry. This is the place where we cut through the crap to bring you the real deal on the gaming industry today.
A deafening
I'm your host, Tony.
silence.
What's that?
Deafening silence because of the lack of the falcon cry. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
It does.
okay.
It seems empty there sometimes, doesn't it?
That's what she said.
Jesus. I'm your host, Tony Grice, and with me, as always, is Daniel Kaiser and Brent Adams. Daniel, how you doing this week, man?
I'm doing great, TG in 3D. Today specifically, I'm recuperating. Spent the morning at the dentist, and you know,
sweet.
Nah.
Free drugs.
Yeah, I got enough of those. But you know,
Free tooth pain.
Wait, what else is Microsoft sending you?
yeah, exactly. But you know, I told them, look, I know my name is Kaiser, which means king, but I really don't need that many crowns. But they keep wanting to put them in, so I keep going back. But despite that, I think my lip here is getting back to normality. So hopefully, I don't sound too stupid on this edition of the show.
Listen, it probably won't make as much of a difference as you think. No, I'm kidding.
Brent, how about yourself? How you doing this week?
What's up? My greenhorns of gouging! My rookies of rampage! How art thou? Mwah!
I
What's
wonder,
that reference to? I'm trying to figure out.
greenhorns and rookies.
Maybe a new competitor entering the competition, entering the race,
Okay.
entering the fray, that kind of thing.
Amazon.
might be that. Yes.
Yeah.
It was either that or I was going to try to find the plural of phoenix and call you guys like, you know, phoenixes of fire or something. Fury. Phoenixes of fury. Some shit like that.
I think plural
okay.
phoenix is phoenixes. Phoenix.
You know, I was actually going to go look it up and then I realized that I don't care.
And that's the quality effort we want every week on this show.
That's right. That's what you pay for. That's what you get.
All right, guys. Well, we have plenty of stories to go over this week, so let's go ahead and run through the gauntlet.
Gauntlet! Gauntlet!
All right, guys, we're here in the gauntlet, and the first story we've got is it looks like some additional benefits to Disney buying the Marvel franchises might be coming to a game that has been pretty popular. Brent,
Yeah.
tell us about some new things coming to, or possibly coming to Disney Infinity.
I would be happy to. So there is a short teaser trailer that basically confirms that Marvel superheroes are on their way to the next version of Disney Infinity, their sandbox cash machine.
It's cash
and
cow.
collectible figurines that you can buy for your little urchins.
Yeah.
And so Disney Affinity 2.0 edition looks to be the next version of the game. And in this video, we see a lot of the familiar characters from Disney Infinity, in addition to Captain America's shield whizzing through the world, and we get a big close-up of it at the end, along with the message that that bring on the superheroes, and the video is titled "Get Ready to Assemble." So I think we all kind of see the Marvel tie-in here. Disney Infinity is actually something that I've had my eye on for a while. I read about it, I don't know, maybe a year or so ago, and was really intrigued by what it offered. And actually, I read a couple of really positive reviews from people who said that far from being a game that only kids can enjoy, that this is actually a game that has enough kind of raw gameplay that parents and kids could actually really enjoy this together. And so it's been one of those things I've had my eye on, thinking, gee, when Z, gets to be the age where, she's ready to kind of start playing video games, this could be, this could be something that maybe she and I could get into together. And so I've always, just kind of checked in on it now and then and see what they're doing. And the fact that they're adding Marvel superheroes is really, really cool. And of course, there's that other property that Disney owns, a little thing called Star Wars. That I don't know, who knows, maybe that'll end up in a future version, or they may do their own thing with that, but
in any case, try to capitalize on that.
For right now today, the point is that that in Infinity 2.0, the Marvel superheroes are going to be showing up. What do you guys think? I mean, of the game in general, of Disney, using these huge properties that it's acquired in recent years.
Yeah.
What's your take on all this?
As an answer to the Skylanders franchise, Infinity obviously offers one major breakthrough, and that is brand identity. And so their strength is being able to do things like this, infuse superheroes, possibly Star Wars. From a business standpoint, it's genius. And the whole project was, ever since day one, saying, hey, what can we do with our properties that Skylanders can't? As far as the game itself, they've tried to innovate a little bit there and done some cool things as well, and it's a natural progression, so good on them for doing that. What scares me though is this idea of a 2.0 edition. What is that? Is that a different game? Is this like an actual... Do you have to buy a different fucking game? That's
Nah, it's because like even the Skylanders stuff, right? Every time they did a revision, the old stuff still worked.
The old figures and figurines
just had like
still
new characters with new abilities, And
of course, the guys who did Skylanders aren't evil like Disney.
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, they are looking to potentially, that's where I draw the line. Like if you have to go buy separate games and do all the separate stuff, then that's too much. In this house, the Pokemon's the big thing with my kids. They love Nintendo stuff, and they have passing interest in other things. Fortunately, this isn't on
just because
their...
when your kid asks for a bologna sandwich and you instead give him a Game Boy, that doesn't mean that they love Nintendo, okay?
You'll eat it and you'll like it.
There's a difference.
But anyway, it'll be interesting to see what they do with the different properties that they can bring into the fray with Infinity, and they've left those possibilities infinite for them as well, not just within the game world, but for their association. So we'll see what they do. I just hope they don't turn it into another game. Getting people to buy the figures is enough, if you ask me.
A separate game.
A separate game, correct.
Yeah.
The one thing I always liked about Disney Infinity is it kind of reminded me just vaguely of like the first time I remember hearing about Kingdom Hearts coming out.
Yeah.
Like the whole idea of like two different properties that initially sort of seemed like, what would that even look like, and then pulling together and then creating this really, really cool world that they did with that property. And Disney Infinity's kind of the same way. Like they pulled all these different properties. Granted, up until now it's been all Disney properties, but even so, completely unrelated to one another. Yeah. Sort of pulling them all together, and now pulling in like the Marvel universe. And I think we sort of joke, but I do think that it's pretty realistic to think at some point, maybe
sure, Star Wars is going to wind up there.
Disney 3.0 or Infinity 3.0, maybe that's when they drop Star Wars closer to release of the next film and stuff like that. I think it's a really cool... Disney does seem to have a pretty good knack for...
making money.
Choosing... making good decisions that people want to purchase, which in turn does make them money. But
That's true.
If it was crap, if it was total crap, like literally if there was nothing to the
it.
game, nobody would buy it. So.
The thing that I really like is I really like the idea of... because really, at its core, Disney Infinity is kind of... like a kid's toy box with all the disparate toys that are completely unrelated. Like having like Scooby-Doo and Batman go on an adventure together. Like who would ever do anything that's stupid? Oh wait. But the point is, so it's like a kid's toy box where you got all the toys and you just like dump them out, and you've got like all of these different characters who have no association whatsoever, going on adventures together. Except at the end of it, there's nothing to clean up. You press the power button and you're done.
I like that.
I like that too. So
yeah, sounds great.
Oh, okay. Seriously, if I ever get the opportunity, if Disney Infinity ever comes out, and I, as Han Solo, can steal a lightsaber from Luke Skywalker and jam it straight up Mickey's ass,
whoa!
That is a video game worth buying. Tell me I'm wrong.
I think you're wrong, but
I think you're right, my friend.
All right. Well, speaking of good ideas, Microsoft has taken a page out of, well, let's be honest, Sony's book, and they're thinking about doing an emulator for the 360 on the Xbox One. DK, do we have some of the details of what they're sort of planning, if anything?
Yeah, kind of. You're hinting at there. Sony's officially announced PlayStation Now, the game streaming service, and we also know, reports of them having the PS1, PS2 games playing on the PlayStation 4.
I'm in the beta for that.
Oh, well.
Ask me about it. I won't tell you.
Yeah, you probably can't.
Can you?
No, I can.
Okay.
I mean, I
Sworn to
can.
secrecy. Yeah.
I can, but Sony's ninjas will
Kill you.
they'll have their way with me.
Microsoft has ninjas as well, and apparently they go to conferences called Microsoft Build, the developer conference, where recently Frank Savage, the younger, less famous brother of Wonder Year star Fred Savage. Actually, I'm joking about that, but I'm sure he gets it all the time.
Because his actual younger brother was the kid on Boy Meets World, right?
Correct.
Just making sure.
Yeah. So anyway, Frank was asked about the possibility of an Xbox 360 emulator appearing on the Xbox One, and he said that there are plans for that, but we're not done thinking them through. It turns out to be hard to emulate your PowerPC stuff on the x86 stuff, so there's nothing to announce, but I would love to see it myself, is what he said.
Yeah.
So that is good. Of course, we don't know what that means, if it's actually just take your old Xbox 360 games and put it into your Xbox One, or if it's, digital, or what's going to be happening. But what do you guys think? I mean, for me, I honestly feel like Microsoft would be selling a shit ton more consoles if they were backwards compatible. It's,
Yeah, it would.
I mean, I understand you're graduating the architecture, you're doing this, that, and the other thing, but, I mean, it just makes sense. I mean, there's not that much stuff to play on really either platform, to be honest with you right now. So the idea of saying, I'm getting set up for the next generation, and I buy the next piece of hardware, sell off my old one, or give it away, and then I still have access to my whole library, and maybe even play some of the newer games coming out on those older platforms on my new piece of hardware. I think it just keeps people gaming, because there is this gap where, if you just have the new hardware, you're kind of like, well, I only want to buy stuff for it, because it's new and things are supposed to be better.
That first year is always pretty shallow.
So I don't know. I mean, to me, it would have been best to have this involved out of the gate. But what do you guys think? A, is it a reality? Is this something you expect to see? And B, how much of an impact do you think it'll have?
Okay, number one, I do think it's a good idea.
No, I said A and B, not number one.
Yeah, well, so the point, though, you're right, but I don't care. First off, it is a good idea, and if Microsoft does end up rolling with this, I think that they will see some benefit from it. I think the reason that people up to this time, I say people meaning mostly Sony, I think the reason that Sony up to this time has made backwards compatibility such a big deal is because they saw utility in it. They saw value in it for the customer, that it would help adoption rates of new hardware and so forth, but it is difficult to do. I mean, like the first generation PS3, the backwards compatibility for that was a PlayStation 2 built onto the PlayStation 3 board. I mean, like that was how they accomplished it. And then later on, they did it through software emulation. But it's emulation, even if you're within the same architecture, PowerPC, x86, emulation still isn't an easy proposition. So I do think that there's legitimate technological reasons why it might be a little bit more difficult, assuming they hadn't been planning it out all this time and getting ready for it. But if they do make the decision to add it to the Xbox One, which at this point I think they really would need to do it through software. I don't like if they were to come out with, say, like a second gen Xbox One that had backwards compatibility where the initial ones didn't, that would be a fucking disaster. But as long as it's something that they add through software that's available to everybody that already owns an Xbox One, then I do think that it would be a really good idea. I would encourage them to do it. If they can get it working where it's not clunky and not a disappointment, then yeah, they ought to do it. Now, as for whether or not Microsoft's implementation is a better idea than Sony's, which Sony is basically, they're for going backwards emulation in favor of PlayStation Now, and they say, well, you know what? Rather than try to figure out, how to emulate x86 or a PowerPC hardware on x86 hardware, we'll just put together the biggest cloud gaming network in the entire world and put all that infrastructure in place so that you can stream games. It's like, all right, well, thank goodness you didn't set the bar too high.
Well. And even for their respective part, they're kind of going both ways. They are. There is rumor that they're working on hardware, or like on the unit emulation, so that you can take the discs you already own and play them, and they're going to have the PlayStation Now option, which is streaming them online, which I think
that seems to be a more long-term solution, whereas this almost seems more like a stopgap to me.
Well, exactly, but in my opinion, though, it's the best of both worlds. It allows you to enjoy your back library that you already own, plus for all those games you didn't get a chance to buy, or maybe bought and traded in and want to play again from the old generation. Those you can stream and play through that service, which with potentially some enhancements too. There's rumor that the PlayStation Now might have some enhancements.
As long as the shit works really well, no problem with any of it. But I think that's the main thing.
Well, sure, absolutely, and that's why I think they're also going that the rumor is that Sony's also going the route of the on unit with an emulator in software doing the backward compatibility, because that will more than likely, as long as they can get the emulator working well, will be the more reliable solution. The one where you just put your disc in, play it. You don't have to be connected to the internet. You don't have to worry about the speed, all that sort of stuff. But anyway, going back to the Xbox, your 2 points. First off, point A is I do agree that it's a good idea. The only
good for you sticking to the game plan.
The only problem is the longer we go on, the less important it is.
Very true.
So
true. Very true.
In all honesty,
correct.
I really feel like if we don't get it in the next, say, 6 months, it's
a
lost
point.
Probably like 80-90% of its importance. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if it were out day one,
October,
it would have been
when like those really big titles that are next gen come out. Who cares anymore?
Right.
Yeah. That's
so.
Good point.
The whole idea of having having it at launch would have been huge. Having it 6 months later, it would have been big, but having it within the first year, if you don't do it by then, it really does kind of start to become moot, in my opinion. Yeah. The other thing is can they do it? I think they definitely could do it, but I will point out that Sony, having built, frankly, significantly more powerful hardware, I think has a better chance of being able to emulate better and do things that like in terms of enhancements, things like that they've got more overhead basically, whereas Microsoft honestly is working with let's be honest, we've talked a little bit about how there have already been some kind of consolations between certain versions of games, because the Xbox One does appear to, at least right now, be a little underpowered for some of the next gen consoles, some of the next gen games that are coming out. So anyway, I actually think that it is kind of an interesting prospect, and I think it'll be sort of interesting to see if they can get it done, because you also are talking about a pretty major change from PowerPC, although you're also talking about a completely different processor on things like the PS3 compared to what is on the PS4. So I mean, the chances there are just...
God, there's so many puns in my head right now. Sorry.
All right, so let's move on. We've got some other big news in the Borderlands arena. We've got a couple of different stories that are coming up. One is we finally got a release date for Borderlands 2 on the PlayStation Vita.
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Taco Bell's breakfast menu. You said something about crossing the border, so... Go ahead.
We got a date on the bundle that's coming out, plus the game, and there's rumor of another big project around it.
You're not
Brent, you
wrong.
want to kind of tell us what we've got coming up?
Absolutely. This week's Borderlands update is brought to you by
Borderlands.
Goat Milk.
Goat milk.
Goat Milk.
Nothing sheepish about it.
So anyway, Borderlands 2. This is something that we've known about. It was going to be coming to the Vita for a while, but we do have a release date that it's coming to the Vita on May 13th. Now, just like a week before that, on May 6th, you can actually you can pick up a bundle with the game, a Vita Slim, and an 8 gigabyte memory card for $200.
Yep.
Which is not a bad deal. It's just that 8 gigabyte memory card is worthless. Go get yourself a 32. It's the only thing that's as I speak from personal experience. You're going to fill up that 8 gigabyte card quick.
Okay.
The other big Borderlands news is a rumor, not an official announcement, but a rumor about the next game in the series. So what we're hearing is that the next title is going to be called Borderlands: The Pre-Sequel, and that it's going to be set during the 5-year gap between Borderlands 1 and 2.
Okay.
And that this game is going to be taking place on Ellipsis and the big H-shaped Hyperion moon base that features so prominently over the skies of Pandora. Now, this game, in theory, assuming the report is accurate, is not being developed by Gearbox, but instead is being put together by 2K Australia.
Oh.
and that it is going to feature 4 characters, a couple of which have been, characters in the other games, but the leads are going to be Athena the Gladiator, Wilhelm the Enforcer, Nisha the Lawbringer, and Fragtrap. Players are going to be able to forge laser weapons this time around. There's also going to be a cryo class of freezing weapons, and also, since the game is set on the moon, gravity is going to be reduced, and there's going to be jetpacks that will allow players to fly around or really long bounce through this reduced gravity environment. Supposedly, this game is coming out for Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC. We don't know about next-gen consoles yet. Anyway, again, this is just rumor for now. So, what do you guys think about Borderlands 2 coming to the Vita? And what do you think about the next Borderlands game going away from Gearbox? Do you think that 2K Australia is going to have what it takes to continue the level of quality that the series has set so far?
Depends on how much Foster's they drink, I guess. But for me, the
do they
Vita,
actually drink Foster's in Australia?
I don't know. If you're Australian, let us know in the comments. Go ahead.
It's
I'd love to
Australian
know
for
that.
beer.
It is Australian for beer. At least that's what we're
According to the ad agency.
told. Yes.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Does TV lie to me?
What? I'm buying the Vita bundle with Borderlands. That will be my introduction to both Borderlands and the Vita.
Great.
So
game
I
to
am
get
buying
for
that, and I look forward to that. And then I'm going to subscribe to PlayStation Plus and call it a year. That is basically my game plan, and that's my birthday present to myself because it comes right after my birthday. Right before my birthday is when the bundle comes out. And apparently, and Tony, not to steal your thunder on this, but Tony brought this up. You can get the game early with the bundle, right? Because it's coming out on the 13th.
Well, it looks like, I mean, the release date they're showing for the bundle is the 6th, and the release date for the game is the 13th. So basically, you get a week early.
Oh, they're pulling a Titanfall. Buy the hardware and get the game. Otherwise, no soup for you until a certain date. Except it's just a week window, and
for 7 days later. Yeah, I was going to say it's probably not that big a deal.
But as far as
hey, I'll be honest with you. Some people would. I mean, there's people that will pay big money to get Titanfall a week early. So I mean, it's cool. It's kind of a neat bonus.
But as far as the game, I've obviously been exposed to the game. I've done a lot of interviews with Gearbox about the game. I've seen the game.
You've exposed yourself to the game?
I've exposed myself to the game.
You exposed yourself to Gearbox.
I've exposed myself to Randy Pitchford. That is, it was not supposed to be documented, but now it is.
That's right. Which is actually the reason that Gearbox isn't working on Borderlands 3. Strangely enough.
Correct. Yes. But
it all stems from that wild party where that happened, and then there was the cactus.
It just takes one really tiny, small incident like that.
Yes. Hashtag cactus. But anyway, the point is that they've done a great job with kind of giving this franchise its own identity, having a lot of fun with it. That is obviously something that the entire team has taken seriously and infused a lot of themselves. I don't know if that is like the type of thing that you could just outsource in the same way that you can like a Call of Duty iteration. So it'll be interesting to say. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I like Australia. I want nothing but the best for Australia. So if 2K Australia could do
as opposed to Switzerland.
No, I like Switzerland too. But anyway, I don't know if I had more of an opinion based on experience with the game. I'll be able to share that after the Vita version comes out. But hopefully they'll do a good job. If indeed this whole thing is true, otherwise we're just talking about something that's non-existent.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It does depend on if it comes out, but I don't think it'd be that big of a stretch. I mean, one, we've already heard from, I think Randy Pitchford has already sort of said that Borderlands 3 is going to have to be huge. Like a really, I mean, it's as amazing as well received as 2 was, and as big as the world is and all that sort of stuff. They're going to have to be even bigger for the next generation. So I think that they've already, I think, announced their last like official made by Gearbox DLC that's coming out. I think either maybe it's like now. It's like coming out real soon. Yeah. I think that's kind of like almost their way of like they're sort of signing off on official content for the official game. We've got Telltale is working on a Borderlands
Tales from the
game.
Borderlands. Yep.
Tales from the Borderlands.
Exactly. That's coming out, from a different team from them. If this rumor's true, we have that happening. I think the possibility is probably there that they might now be in that time where they need to sort of kind of roll down work on 2 and really start looking at 3 if they want to have it out in the next, 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
they're not like EA where they keep continually to tell you that they're going to stop to work on the next big thing and continue to just pump out crap. So
do you think?
But I'll be really interested to see how you feel about Borderlands, and I'm actually very interested to see how well it translates to the Vita, because they did show a couple of pictures in that post where they announced the bundle, because we haven't seen anything from it yet at all.
There's a new video now. Yeah.
Oh, is there a video of gameplay?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Hell yeah, I'll have to check that out. Anyway, I'm interested to see how well it plays on the Vita, because I love the game and I love the Vita. I think if it plays well and if it's a pretty smooth experience, I think that could be a match made in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think that, I mean, based on, and I won't spoil it for you, DK, since I know that you haven't played the game yet, but based on the ending of 2, I mean, do you think there's any possibility that, like, Borderlands 3 is a Destiny-like Borderlands MMO, like a massively multiplayer online game that takes place, in the Borderlands universe, where you can find other people.
You're going to spoil this whole game for
shit.
me, aren't you?
No, I'm really trying not to, but I'm just saying that like the end of Borderlands 2, like the kind of the ellipsis, the ... at the end of the game leads to some very, very big possibilities for where the third game could go. And I mean, like, honestly, if there's any game that if there's any game that's got the following, if there's any game that's got the leverage and the level of interest to actually kind of do something similar like what Destiny is attempting to do, I would think it would be this game. I mean, like, I think that the possibility is there for them to do this and for it to really work and make sense within the mechanics that the game already has. The question is just whether or not, like, would anybody be interested in playing a Borderlands MMO FPS?
I think they could be, especially too, considering that Destiny's out this year.
Yeah.
I think honestly the earliest I've heard is like I think they're saying like 2 to 3 years for Borderlands 3 minimum. So you got to figure that'll mean that Destiny will have been out for 2 years at that point. That's maybe not a bad thing. That people will have played Destiny and hopefully enjoyed it. They may still be playing it readily, but gives them maybe a new world to jump into. I totally agree. I've actually always felt like Borderlands 2 was a good fit for kind of that co-op.
I think that would
play.
be so fun. I think that would be so fun.
It's just got such a personality too, which is the thing that I can maintain. I still feel like Destiny has not really shown us its personality just yet, and Borderlands has it in freaking spades. All right, let's move along. We got one last little bit of news. DK, there's also this is rumor week apparently. There's a rumor that, and I think this is crazy. I'm going to come out and say I think this is bullshit. Supposedly,
totally
Nintendo is working on a new Mario game.
Whatever.
What?
Whatever.
DK, try to make me not laugh to this story here.
Nintendo's making a new Mario game.
Okay, well that does make sense. The more you explain it, it kind of now that I've sort of sat with it for a while and contemplated it, I actually kind of see where they're going there.
Well, obviously we know that Nintendo's going to continue to make Mario games, but in a recent interview with Edge magazine, Nintendo producer Yoshiaki
Koizumi,
Yoshiaki Koizumi, my good pal. Koizumi-san.
My good pal, whose name I can't fucking pronounce.
Yeah, he was talking about the fact that they're making a new game, and they were asking whether or not a new Mario game is coming to the Wii U or the 3DS. He said that's still a secret. I can tell you though that we've already started approaching our next challenge. He also added that there's still a lot more room for discovery and invention, and we'll continue to propose new and exciting game mechanics going into the future. So about as generic as you can get. But the bottom line here is that they're making this new Mario game. Of course, Super Mario 3D World released on the Wii U in November of last year. Also a bundle with the Wii U.
And did you get it a week early? Well, then I don't care.
Exactly. But so it'll be interesting. What do you guys think? I mean, are they going to leverage Mario to continue to try to save the Wii U? If they're just now developing a game and they haven't even decided what platform it's on, are they too late on the Wii U? The 3DS seems like it's going to have a life for quite a while until they end it and introduce new hardware.
Well, this is on the assumption that they're not also working on like 12 other Mario titles. This is just they're working on another Mario title. Because I mean, I'll be honest, I'd say just like they did with New Super Mario U, like there will be like because there's the Luigi sort of add-on addition to it. There'll probably be an add-on for Super Mario 3D World. Yeah. There are going to be other Mario games out on other platforms. I actually, real quick, want to ask you guys a question. Do you think that this could possibly be for the supposed other platform that they're working on down the road? Like maybe
I don't know if this project is, but they damn well need to be working on the next project.
Maybe this is me being Nintendo ignorant, but I have a question.
Or just ignorant.
Well, it could go either way.
That's what she said.
My question, though, is what is stopping Nintendo from doing a Mario game that's on both platforms? A game that's like crossplay between the Wii U and the 3DS.
Yeah, I've always
the way that we've seen with like PlayStation 3 and Vita. Why isn't Nintendo leveraging these two platforms they have to do both?
Because they're terrible at business. Yeah. I'm going to be honest. They just are. Like I really, because like I was thinking about this today with the fact that you've got like honestly, Super Smash Brothers is from what I can think the first game that they will be releasing on both platforms at the same time.
Yeah.
And even that, the games aren't absolutely identical. I mean, they're as close as I think as any game is going to be on the two platforms.
Yeah.
But they just recently announced that and dropped where you can start playing Game Boy Advance games on, get this, the Wii U. Yeah. You still can't buy GBA games. You can get the Ambassador Program ones, the ones that were, when the whole deal they did.
You can buy games out of the catalog for the 3DS.
Not yet. Like they make so many odd choices. Plus,
if
they
anybody but Nintendo was in charge of Nintendo, it would be like they would be challenging Apple.
Absolutely, they would have a theme park like Disneyland here in America. They would just be.
If they were fucking smart, they would have a goddamn theme park. Yeah. I would go to that fucking theme park.
I would go
10 times a year.
Hey, one caveat to the story, real fast, for everyone listening: we are fully aware of the fact that the latest Nintendo Direct is focusing on said Super Smash Brothers. That is taking place in a few hours from when we have our scheduled recording. If you are listening to me say this right now, we have determined that the information that was given during said Nintendo Direct wasn't worth a shit, and we're not going to re-record a segment to cover it, and we'll just talk about it next week and continue Nintendo's...
I doubt we'll talk about it next week.
And continue Nintendo's trend of getting our hopes up with these Nintendo Directs only to introduce some really crazy stuff and not give us firm release dates.
Let me just. I'm gonna just take. I think I have just watched the Nintendo event. It's Super Smash Brothers release date, future,
coming in the future,
sometime after right now. All right, guys, we are here in the main topic, and this week we're going to talk about a little announcement from Amazon. Amazon has dropped their new Fire TV this recent week, and a lot of the talk is around the media features and some of the cool buffering technology they got for their videos and whatnot. But probably the most interesting thing to us, of course, is going to be the gaming aspect of the device. DK, you want to kind of take us down the announcement and some of the features that the new Fire TV is going to offer us?
Well, the very well-priced Fire TV at $99 was officially announced not too long ago, and we do know the gaming component is not being taken too lightly. There's several game publishers and developers on board, including 2K, Disney, Gameloft, EA, Ubisoft, Double Fine, Sega, Telltale, just to name a few, and they've a full-fledged controller for $40 that sells alongside the $99 Amazon Fire, and it's got some pretty good specs. But this is their foray. This has been rumored for a long time about them coming into the living room with a gaming device. It's not a dedicated gaming console in the way that like an Ouya or something else might be considered. But this is definitely something that kind of changes the landscape of stuff and gets more games in front of more people at a very affordable price point. Do you guys take this gaming device seriously in terms of what it can do and the types of experiences that it can provide based on its hardware, also based on just kind of the expectancy of what the audience is. What are the pros and cons of Amazon kind of going this route and doing it? For me personally, I mean, it might turn a lot of people on to some pretty good games that would be, gateway drugs, if you will, to
I agree.
To bigger and better systems.
To real gaming.
That's
what you wanted to say.
What do you guys think? What do you think about that? What do you think about the hardware itself? And is this something that you yourselves would actually consider picking up?
I'll answer the last question first.
That was question C.
Yes, it was. And so for question 3, I will let you know that I'm going to wait and see what Apple ends up doing with the new Apple TV before I make a decision. I'm interested in the Fire TV. I think that it's a cool looking device. It certainly has some good features, but I'm interested to see what Apple ends up doing before I make a decision on which of these I might go with. As for whether or not to take it seriously, I maintain that the answer is yes. I maintain that this is something that should be taken seriously, and I think there's a couple reasons why. Number one, I think that of all the consoles that are out on the shelves right now that people people need concern themselves with as far as like where this might compete, I think Nintendo is maybe the primary competition. I think that for all those people who would never buy a game console but picked up a Wii because Wii Sports looked like a lot of fun, and it plays Netflix too. This is exactly the kind of person that might go for this box. And the fact is that if they have younger kids who probably aren't ready for a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox. One of my friends, right off the top of my head, her daughter's almost 9 now. And we were emailing, and she was telling me that she's thinking about like maybe it's time to get an Xbox or something because she's kind of beginning to outgrow the Wii. And like for me, I look at this and I think, well, that's going to be like that's the kind of customer that might go for something like a Fire TV. And I think a lot of the Wii success was down to the killer app that was Wii Sports, but Minecraft is no motherfucking joke. And the fact that this thing is going to be able to play Minecraft, and as huge a phenomenon as Minecraft is, and as big as it is with kids especially, I don't think that you can count out what kind of inroads that could make with a certain demographic. So I think that what the box just represents right now, which I agree with you, is more of a sort of casual gateway drug kind of gaming device where you could get into it, you could get into gaming on this device, play some, maybe some decent games, play some games from some big name people, but then later on graduate to something like an Xbox One or a PlayStation 4. Yep. I definitely see some possibilities for that. The other thing that I'll say real briefly is that I look at this box and I cannot help but think that if Amazon decided to get into, say, cloud gaming, if Amazon decided to, buy OnLive as an example, and get into cloud gaming, they could really, really shake the market up in a big way. They've got a consumer endpoint in this device where they could deliver something like that, and Odin knows that they've got the fucking infrastructure to back it up and really, really make it work. Where other companies might struggle with that, Amazon's got more than enough to put a service like that out there and really have it work. So those are two things that
I'd be sold on that. This would be the things front and center in my living room if that was the case. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt. But just the box itself. I mean, like beyond all that, just the box itself, the hardware in this thing, it's pretty damn impressive. I've got a friend who's a developer in Austin who was posting updates and pictures to Facebook last night of running Unreal 4 on this box.
Nice, pretty impressive. TG, is this something you pick up?
Yeah, no, I'm with most everything Brent just said. Like I definitely think that the device, from a hardware perspective, very powerful. I tell you, the only thing, honestly, that I think is, I really do think that it's going to depend, honestly, what Apple brings out. If Apple comes out with a competing product, something that's same price point, vaguely the same hardware, and has controller support, things like that. Just to be honest with you, developers gravitate towards iOS because it is just a more profitable platform for them, like by huge amounts.
And in this case, it would be more well established. Isn't Fire running a flavor of Android?
Yeah. Well, it's running a flavor of Android, and it's their own interface on top of it. So it doesn't even have access to the Play Store, which would kind of like immediately give it this larger choice of games. Games still have to sort of be like accepted in through the Amazon store interface. But that's not, I mean, that's not crazy. But I would say that there are just still way more games, period, and just more developers, I think, that are more excited about going towards a platform like iOS because there just is a much higher buy-through rate. So, I mean, if you potentially have the chance to make more money off the property, you're going to make your games at minimum first for that platform before you bring them out to something else.
Yeah.
I will say too that the first sort of games that they showed, some of because they one of the other things they announced is Amazon's games studio. They're come out with I think Sub-Zero is like a shooter that they're bringing out. They acquired.
It's a tower defense game. It's like a third-person tower defense game.
Yeah.
Like Orcs Must Die. That for some reason I keep reading everyone calls it Halo-like. The Halo ripoff, Sub-Zero. I'm like, I don't understand how an FPS and a third-person tower defense game are similar, but
yeah, I think just visual style, it looks vaguely like it. But they also acquired Double Helix Games, which recently is made the Killer Instinct game for Xbox One and Strider that's been out on almost every platform.
They've also hired Kim Swift and what's his name, Clint Hawking, guy that worked on Far Cry 2.
Yep.
They've also hired some high-profile talent.
Yeah, but the problem is, I look at something like Sub-Zero. That doesn't look like a title that, at least from what I've seen so far, is like a system seller, as it were. Like I see people that get the box getting that, but I don't see people going to get the box to get that. Does that make sense? Like I do think that a lot of people are going to buy this as their media hub in their house. As their way of watching Netflix and YouTube and Hulu and all that sort of stuff in their living room, and then choosing to do some of these other things on it. I can see that. I don't think that the gaming side of it is going to be huge, with the exception of if Apple does not bring out anything in the range of that. I think there is an audience that is looking for something, frankly, something like the Ouya, which hasn't really done as well as I think they hoped for, and so for people that want to play those Android games, the games that are being kind of ported over, those people I think will start to move towards something like this. Again, with the exception that Apple doesn't do it, and I think if Apple does it, I think this has a much bigger uproad. And that's not just because I'm a fan of Apple products. I think in general, you go where the money is, and Apple has a much higher sell-through.
Real quick, a lot of people that I've talked to have all made the connection to the Ouya, and I think a lot of people feel like the Fire TV could be the device, like the mid-core device that the Ouya was trying to be.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, it's more powerful. It can do everything that the Ouya could do, and looks to be much better. Like better in all the other aspects.
Yeah.
In
a little bit more expensive, considering that the controller costs $40, but I think the quality of the experience will probably justify that cost.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, because the console comes with one controller, doesn't it? That's true.
Yeah, the Ouya
just
does.
one thought, real fast, and this is, you guys are talking about some of these specs. There's one thing been on my mind this whole time. I know it's kind of silly, but I just cannot break away from that last Gauntlet story talking about Nintendo, and just the more these devices penetrate the marketplace and just are basically methods of distributing content, whether it's through iOS or Android or whatever these devices are doing. Like, everyone's got a device. Everyone is now going to have these smaller devices for streaming Netflix and doing this other stuff. And Nintendo just not refusing to make games that are on anything but Nintendo hardware. Just think about being able to buy this thing.
Well, but you got to kind of give it. Sony and Microsoft don't either, though, do they? Like, does Sony or Microsoft make? I mean, there's a handful. Like,
but Sony and Microsoft don't have Mario and Zelda and like great.
Exactly. Like, I mean, they're core IPs.
I just don't understand, though.
Here's the thing to that, though. Okay, the reason that Nintendo has survived this long with Sony and Microsoft is that they really haven't been directly competing with Sony and Microsoft. Sony and Microsoft are definitely competing with each other, but Nintendo has been doing their own thing, and it's been different enough from what the other two have been doing that they haven't really found themselves going head to head, and it's allowed them to stay strong through all this. And obviously the enormous kind of breakout hit success of the Wii, the breakout success of the Wii also is a contributing factor. But if the Amazon Fire, and if Apple comes out with an Apple TV that is like the Amazon Fire, they, I think, are going to be more directly competitive competing with Nintendo. But just to finish the point, if Nintendo does not, kind of get their head out of the sand, if they do not start like really looking at their online services and how they're putting all this stuff together, the choice of whether or not to do their games on their own hardware is going to be taken away from them.
Yeah.
When these other two companies sap customers away, and they have to go the route of Sega.
Yeah.
But I mean, why do you think that they're competing in the same market as these devices? Because no offense, I don't see the same games on this platform
same type
or
of
any of the
consumer.
other platforms.
It's the same type of consumer.
That's exactly right. They're competing for the same
It's a consumer that's not going
marketplace.
to shell out $500 for a console or $400 for a console or whatever. But they still want to play some games, and you got the Nintendo hardcore audience, but that's obviously.
Well, no, that's the thing. Nintendo has its core IPs, and that's what sells their systems.
I know, but
the casual thing was a Wii thing. No offense, it wasn't there before the Wii, and it hasn't been there after the Wii.
If you're a consumer that doesn't buy into Nintendo's core IPs, if you just go into a Best Buy or a Target or whatever, and you're thinking about getting some piece of entertainment hardware for your home, and you're thinking like you've got young kids that you might be into video games, you are definitely looking at something like a Nintendo Wii U and like maybe this Amazon Fire TV.
What would it benefit them having their properties on those hardware then? Because you're not looking for that.
And to answer that question, I totally get what you're saying. The best experience can be on the Nintendo platforms that they own and their hardware. But I haven't touched a Mario game in months now. I played Zelda on the 3DS, which was fantastic, but beyond that, I haven't played a Mario or Zelda game in a long time because I'm not drawn to the Wii U. So they have this take it or leave it mentality where I'm saying you could have both. It doesn't dilute your market to have, if they come up with, we've launched Nintendo Play, which is a whole new development sector of our business focused on bringing our famous brands to the devices that are in everyday scenarios in your life, and you can have a little Mario game to play on the Amazon thing while you're gonna watch Netflix or in between, at halftime of the game, because I could just do it. It keeps the brands in front of me. It keeps all this stuff, and then if I want to go and graduate to the core experience, then that's where I go to the Wii U or to the 3DS. And they're not this idea that they're cannibalizing their own market if they put their products. No, I mean, look at Disney.
I mean, they definitely would be. Your whole point, though, is that you aren't going to go to that platform, but you would get some of their stuff if it was on this.
And that would make me want to go more to their platform. I'd be educated about it. I'd be playing more Mario games.
Come on, you're as educated on what they have available on the Wii U now as you'll ever be.
I am.
So I mean, there's no experience you're going to get on this platform that will make you then go to another, over to
Dude, I have tons of friends with kids, and they don't play any of this stuff. But if they bought an Amazon thing for $99 and came home, and their daughters fell in love with the Mario game, well, guess what they're getting for Christmas that year? A Wii U.
More Mario games on the Amazon platform. Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, if they move to that platform, they're on that platform. I don't even necessarily think that that's a bad idea. I'm not disagreeing with you that
as somebody who's had kids for 10 years, and I know how the process works, and the idea of you just told me you were just talking about the story of, well, I'm done with the Wii. I want to graduate to something else. Well, they started on the Wii. If they start on the Amazon, if they start on the Apple device, and they're playing Nintendo products, you're creating fans of the brands that will graduate to the other things and get the better.
Well, you're talking about something
experience.
that everybody can do. I mean, anybody can make something that might make them want to buy something else
Microsoft
on any
and Sony
platform.
don't
I'm
need
just
to
saying
do
that I don't
right
think
now.
that the comparison between the fact that the Wii U market, which is struggling, and I don't think they're doing it right. I mean, I agree that I actually think that they should bring their titles to other hardware. They're not gonna, because they will see that as cannibalizing their hardware sales, which they do still see as a necessity for them. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I don't think that I see them bringing out games on two platforms. If they do anything, I think
there's nothing they've done so far that I mean, there's no indication whatsoever that they're going to change their stance on this.
Exactly. That's the thing I guess I'm getting to, but I don't think that they compete.
It's crazy. How many iPhones are out there? How many people have iPhones? How many people have Android devices? How many people are going to have these devices?
Yeah, and how many people have to compete
saying, no,
for
we're not going to go into those markets with our brands because we're too good.
But if you bring Mario down to the level of Flappy Bird, it's honestly, I don't think that it is necessarily a good thing for Nintendo. Nintendo is a company that gives sort of a slightly premium product that if the types of games that are successful and make money and do really well on mobile platforms aren't the same things that are successful on bigger scales. So if Nintendo makes that decision, they really are. It's kind of all or nothing. If it doesn't work for them, it could be really bad. I'm not saying that I don't think it's the way they could go.
It's definitely a risk. But the thing is, I don't know that they necessarily have to. I don't know that they have to like bring their stuff out on other platforms to succeed so much as they need. The closed system is fine, provided that the closed system kind of catches up with everybody else, because they are noticeably lagging behind in their own platforms right now.
All the problems they have, they can fix on the platform they're on. That's where they're making all the poor decisions. My thing, though, is the thing, just real quick, then I will shut up about it, is that you're sort of making the thing that Nintendo needs to do this. Well, that's because Nintendo is struggling, admittedly.
And they have the best brands
but hear me
in the world.
out. They're struggling because of decisions they're making from a business standpoint, not in what platform they're on. If they would just make the right decisions, the Wii U would sell just fine, and it would be a great platform. The problem is, moving to that other platform, they're giving up a lot for their future. Like they need to fix what they're on, or be like, look, we can't fix what we're on, and we're just going to go that route. And I don't think they're ready to do that, and I'm not so sure that that's the best thing for them. The best thing for them is to fix the platform they're on, which they could easily do.
Well, they have to release new hardware and come out with something that is going to get, they struck.
It's not just new hardware. They've got to rethink everything about
I don't even think it's new hardware, honest to goodness.
It's mostly online services.
Yeah, it's online services.
Nintendo, if Nintendo was run by like fucking, like Apple or Amazon or Google, if somebody like that was in charge of like Nintendo, they would be able to leverage online services in ways that could really, really benefit Nintendo as a business. But they just don't seem to have any vision for that.
I do see it as a business decision. And just to summarize, I know literally about 10 families, I can tell you right now, that don't own a Nintendo device, haven't played a Mario game since they were kids. They all have kids. If they had Mario games on their current devices available to them, they would buy those games. I guarantee you they would buy those games and play those games, and it would make them consider buying a Wii U or a 3DS for birthday or for a holiday. Meanwhile, the people who own a Wii U or a 3DS or who are hardcore Nintendo fans already have those devices anyway. So they're not losing anything. What are you losing? That's my point.
You can't say that they're going to come out and compete on iOS, because you can't bring out $40 and $50 games on iOS.
Why would they bring out $40 or $50 games? They'd bring out $2, $5 games.
Exactly. And so if those games are as compelling as the games they've got on other stuff to bring people in, there's no reason for them to go back to the other platform.
You're saying that they have this. You're telling me they can't release a 3-track Mario Kart game for $2 on iOS or $5 on iOS. They can't release a kart game that I can play.
People will play that same 3 tracks a million times and never buy the $200-$300
when they
piece of
walk into
hardware.
Best Buy and they see the HD Wii U version of Mario Kart coming out next month, they're not going to be like, well, damn, that looks awesome.
Absolutely, because people constantly play those free and or $2 games for millions of times without putting any more money into them. They do,
what if Nintendo was smart on a business level and said, you download this game, you get $5 off the game when you buy it because you already paid us $5 or whatever, and they make it a gateway thing, or they tie it systematically in so that you have a universal stats that apply on your iPhone and also go over to the Wii U.
If it was that clear cut, why isn't there like a free demo level from Titanfall on the iPad? I mean, it's like the whole point is if that was so clear cut that you make these small things on this platform and it naturally progresses to more sales on your other platform. Titanfall is different
than Mario Kart, though. That's what I'm talking about. Like, I mean, what I'm saying is they're perfectly set up for this scenario. Their games rely on their characters, not on technical specs. They don't rely on.
I think
all
they
this
do.
stuff.
I think there is a big difference of playing a game on a phone or a tablet than to playing with hardware. Nintendo's actually one of the biggest people about physical buttons.
On iOS, there couldn't be a good Mario Kart game. Like I would play that shit
There's
nonstop.
Like 18 different Mario Kart type games, and they aren't as
and they're not Mario Kart. So
because you use touchscreen controls, I think is a big part of it. I think there is a big part of the physical controls and things like that.
Wow. Anyway, I just see it from a business perspective. It's just waiting to happen, and their refusal is just. I see it
as a business thing too, though. I think you're saying that I'm just being like Nintendo and being odd. I'm saying that I think once they make that choice to move over to that platform, they're stuck doing that. They can't go back.
Exactly.
And if it works, it could work huge. I'll give you that. I really will. But I also think that they could fix what their problems are with their current generation stuff.
Yeah.
And it really wouldn't be a problem. They'd have that same market share that they had with Wii.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also a business thing, but that they should just start getting into selling bananas. Because there's no way to fuck that up.
That is true.
Sure.
I mean, if there was, Nintendo would find a way, let's be honest. All right, guys, well, we are coming up near the end of this week's Skirmish, but first we have our Battle Cries of the week. And I'm going to start off with my Battle Cry, which is actually out to a game that I'm sadly afraid probably doesn't actually exist.
What?
So this was a little bit of a surprise to me. On April 1st, the people over at the Simply Awful Game Center CX translation group brought out a trailer for a new Game Center CX game. And, you know, there's been a couple games. There's a 3DS game, and there's a movie that's come out and things like that. But this one was like fully 3D. It kind of looked almost like Sleeping Dogs or something. Like, you know, Cacho is running around shooting people and blowing up, you know, aliens and stuff. And it looks like the coolest Game Center CX game that you could ever have. And sadly, I think it was just an April Fool's prank, you know, for them just to kind of get you excited. And it does bum me out when I'm like, that's awesome. Oh, it's fucking April 1st. I got to remember that. Nothing on that day is true. But anyway, if you're a fan of Game Center CX and you haven't already seen this, hopefully it's playing behind us right now, but you can go onto YouTube and see the footage. It is pretty cool just to see what like a kind of hardcore action Game Center CX game might look like versus like old school retro games, which are great. But anyway, kind of a cool little post April 1st joke.
Nice.
All right, so Brent, what is your battle cry this week?
My battle cry this week goes out to my favorite piece of gaming news maybe ever. As we talked about on this show, obviously the Star Wars video game license, went to EA, and there are several studios that are working on Star Wars games. We talked about this whole strategy that they were mentioning of, we'd really like to kind of follow in the Arkham series footsteps, do really good games. We know that DICE is working on stuff. We know that BioWare is working on stuff. We know that Visceral Games is working on stuff. In addition, there's another piece of news that we covered on Epic Battle Cry recently, and that was the kind of odd departure of Amy Hennig from Naughty Dog and the series that she founded there, Uncharted, which kind of came to define PlayStation gaming in the last generation. And the fact that she wasn't there anymore and not working on Uncharted 4 was a little bit interesting. And of course, because she is such a high-profile figure in gaming, because she is so obviously talented, the question became, well, where does she go next? What does she work on next? Well, now we know. And the answer is that Amy Hennig is now at Visceral Games and is going to be the creative director on the Star Wars game project that Visceral is working on. And I cannot think of anything that could make me more excited to see what Visceral ends up doing with the Star Wars license, and with Amy Hennig at the helm.
It's gonna be awesome.
I cannot wait. Like, her sensibility, her creativity and talent as a writer and as a creative director within the video game industry, I cannot think of anyone I would be more excited to see unleashed on the Star Wars property.
Unleashed!
Than Amy Hennig. So I'm really, really excited for this. Congratulations to her. I can't wait to play whatever you and the team at Visceral come up with.
Yeah, I remember as soon as I read that, I was just Brent's head just exploded, and not his upper head.
Pretty much.
All right, DK, what is your battle cry this week, buddy?
First and foremost, it's a two-parter. Borderlands, the pre-sequel we talked about, is actually official. By the time that people hear this podcast, it will have been officially announced, so we could go ahead and clarify that
great.
With our earlier story.
And I went back and re-recorded that part too. Damn it.
So yes, it is actually official. And you will have seen some media from it by the time this airs. So anyway, but my actual battle cry goes out to Sir Peter Molyneux talking some shit.
They haven't knighted him, have they?
They have knighted him. And
no, they've indicted him. Isn't that what,
there's a big difference.
Yeah.
Sir Peter Molyneux, who you may remember from E3 2009, standing on the stage talking about Kinect and Project Milo, was Project Natal, as it was known early on.
Project Illegal.
Project Illegal. No, obviously he was one of the first people to kind of come onto stage and talk about Natal, which would become Kinect, and touting it as, the future of gaming and what they're going to do with it and stuff like that.
Was it ever?
Reality has kind of set in for Sir Peter Molyneux. He actually said this recently. I actually wish Kinect wasn't a requirement. It feels like an unnecessary add-on to me. Maybe it's because we're in England and it doesn't really and it doesn't really use the TV stuff, but it feels more and more like a joke. My son and I sit there saying random things at it, and it doesn't work. They could cost reduce it by removing the Kinect. I'm sure they're going to release an Xbox One without Kinect. It would be unthinkable that they wouldn't. That's exactly what he said. So
Interesting.
Very interesting words coming from Peter Molyneux. I, of course, have agreed since day one about the Xbox One and Kinect that it should not be forced upon us, that it should be optional, that they should compete with Sony in terms of price and let the Kinect people have it if they want. I've been playing the Xbox One since launch, and there's nothing about the experience where I'm like, the Kinect is essential. I could not have this experience without Kinect. No, there's been a couple of cool little things, but nothing. So what do you guys make of not only his comments, but how Microsoft will react to them? I just want to know. I know it's my battle cry and it goes out to the thing,
honestly,
but I'm just curious.
I think that probably there's a good chance that he's right, simply because there's been such a huge changing of the guard over at Microsoft, and it seems to me that a lot of the decisions with the Xbox and Kinect is a good example of that, have been more about Microsoft and less about Xbox specifically.
Mm-hmm.
It's been more about Microsoft has this vision for an interactive living room, and so we're going to kind of use Xbox to try to bring that about. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't really about, hey, is this great for gamers, etc.
Yeah.
And I have to say that now that Phil Spencer is head over at Microsoft, I don't know. I expect to see a lot of these decisions reversed on. I think that a lot of this, Kinect especially, was the old vanguard at work. And I remember, that interview, was it Keeley that did that interview with Robbie Bachman where he was talking about how, Kinect was going to let us get to, real interactive entertainment. We were going to leave gaming behind. That whole mentality, I think, is
stupid.
I think that whole mentality maybe went out the door with all these people that have recently left Microsoft. So I have hope that maybe Molyneux's right, and maybe Microsoft's going to, or that that Xbox is going to get more focused on gaming. And if that's true, then Kinect probably isn't going to be a requirement much longer.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, I think that old guard, if you kind of see when people started dropping off, it was like right around the time the Xbox One, like between when it was announced and launched.
Yeah.
So I do feel like that there were a lot of people that either were not happy with the direction it was going, or just felt like, look, we need to go in a new direction. And so that's why a lot of these new people have been brought in. And I definitely think that, I think Molyneux's right. Now, I do kind of think that Molyneux may be a little butthurt in this whole thing. And I think he's less kind of,
it's ironic
relevant.
That he's the one that's butthurt.
Exactly.
And if anyone wants a camera in your living room,
you might recognize him from mugshots. The whole thing with it not being requirement is definitely something I think that we'll see down the road. And
how do they
I think that's
sell
only
that,
a good
though?
thing. I think
Xbox
the whole
now without Kinect.
Really.
How
The
do you
thing I think
sell
is
that?
interesting is how many times have we seen
We
the
told
price
you
drop?
it was essential.
How many times have we seen the price drop? So I mean, obviously they realize pricing is a factor. And so when is it going to get to the point where they're just like, okay, look, is it safe now to say that we don't have to have Kinect? Like, have we waited long enough?
Wink, wink.
I think they do exactly the same kind of thing that Sony did at E3 last year, where they said, we're listening to you. We're listening to what you have to say, to what you want. And as a result of that, we're doing this. We're supporting indie devs. We're doing self-publishing. We're dropping the Kinect requirement. We're getting Xbox back to the game console that you love and that you made the #1 video game platform in the world, blah, blah, blah. Make it all about we're pleasing you, the fans. I think that if you message it like that, I think you can absolutely make people swallow that
I think
pill.
you're probably right. Just up front is the best way to handle all these things. It's just like, look, we hear you. We get you, and so here you go. That's what you want.
You do that, and you'll not only engage people, you'll not only empower customers, you get people swung back around. It's like Xbox is the brand that fucking gets me. They're making shit for me, and I'm
gonna go get an Xbox tattoo.
That's exactly right. I mean, but that's the thing. I mean, like when you engage your consumer on that level, when you really get people into that zone where your brand is part of their self-identity, like I'm a fucking Sony gamer. I'm an Xbox gamer.
Yeah. I named my kids X and Box, respectively.
One.
That's the thing. Like people psychologically, people will respond to that. They will buy into that. And
coincidentally, if you're listening to the show and you've named your
do
kids Xbox or Xbox One, we apologize.
And you're now being sued by Microsoft.
No, we apologize for you.
Oh, okay. Not to you.
Not to you.
All right, well, let's. We've got a member battle cry.
We do indeed.
Yeah. Hey,
do.
Brent, I believe you have the member battle cry this week.
I do, sir, and it comes from Ian, otherwise known on the interwebs as Alexander Arts. And he says, "Sometimes I feel a bit offended."
In Japanese?
When I would love to, but no.
Colbert.
But no.
Cancel epic battle cry.
Sometimes I feel a bit offended when Japanese companies talk about targeting things for Japanese gamers or American gamers.
Really?
Sure, culture can influence people's opinions, and so can language and translation, but a good game is a good game, and a gamer is a gamer. Bravely Default isn't popular in Japan because it's Japanese-focused. It's because it's well-made. Of course, people from other countries will want to play it too. A lot of the niche titles that are popular in Japan and not the U.S. are just marketed badly or are just not that good in quality. Imagine if Gearbox was complaining about Aliens Colonial Marine sales in Japan. They might give the same excuse. We built this for an American audience, for fans of the Aliens movies. It didn't sell well in Japan because we didn't target their preferences. That might be partially true, but the reason it didn't sell well here is because it sucks. It sold more in the U.S. because there are fans who will buy anything with the Aliens name slapped on it, just like they can sell terrible licensed anime games in Japan. Make good games, let people know about them, and they will buy them. Easier said than done, sure, but don't blame everything on cultural differences.
Wow, that's
on culture
a good one.
differences.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Although, let's be honest, you have to blame things on cultural differences. I mean, you can't.
You can't.
Right?
Yes.
I think that the thing about that is, as opposed to necessarily trying to, it's like, oh, let's make games for all people.
Right.
It's like, you know what, just make a good game. And if it's a good, despite whatever the cultural sensibilities might be that went into making that game, whether they're specific to Japanese culture or Western culture, whatever it might be.
Really.
If you just focus on making a really good game, the other stuff will kind of sort itself out.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about, the big one we brought up was Bravely Default, being a kind of a classically sort of more in the Japanese, role-playing style game that was good, and so it worked well wherever it sold. Honestly, Grand Theft Auto 5, there was a lot of talk about how well it sold in Japan, which is, it's one of those games that kind of feels like a pretty distinctively sort of, American or more Western style of game.
Made by Scottish people.
Made by Scottish, but still, it's definitely less in tone of what we think of typically being popular there. It's just, if the game is really good and really well made, it will be popular with a segment of the population no matter where it's released.
Certainly.
Yes.
All right. Well,
agree.
that is going to end it for this week's Skirmish. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this week, and please join us once again next week when we will be mercilessly cleaving the fat from the gaming stories of the day.
Woohoo.
For Brent Adams and Daniel Kaiser, I'm your host, Tony Grice, and remember, cry havoc and
Put Nintendo games on my iPhone. I tell you, if Mario Kart was out right now, I would stop everything, delete games, pay $2, $5, whatever I need to, and I would download it, and I'd be playing it while Brent was talking.
Wait, you don't listen to me when I talk? Rip off!
I know, but see, then I go on, but then I get on the train to go to the Rockies game. I'm not going to bring my DS all the time.
No, that'll get stolen. I'm just kidding. Nobody gives a shit.
I have the gold Zelda DS. I'm sure somebody would want to steal.
Oh, good for you.